You're listening to the Zen Cop Podcast.
Guys, welcome back. Mac Rollins, Zen Cop here. This is the Zen Cop Podcast, Season 2, Episode 8, and I have Jamil Syed here today with me. It's going to be a great episode. Lots of excellent topics and speaking points to go over. I'm super excited. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to addiction, sobriety, rehabilitation. He's a former CDCR officer turned entrepreneur. I'm excited to have him here. Jamil, for the audience who is not aware, give us a quick intro, man. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me. I'm really grateful to be here. Yeah, so I started my law enforcement career with the California Department of Corrections in 2008. I did about 8.5 years there. I worked every assignment you could think of. Most of my career I spent on a level 4 prison yard, which for those of you guys that don't know what that is, that's the maximum security. It's the highest level of custody in the Department of Corrections. It's a very very violent environment. Lots of stabbings, lots of violence, and I spent my career there. And I separated from the agency in 2015 after the end of an internal affairs investigation that was tough, like anyone knows if they've been through one. But what I'm grateful for is that at the end of that, the administrative law judge, which who holds the hearing, he ruled everything in my favor. It was kind of a chicken shit case, but long story short, through that process, I was always a very, very big partier through, my young years, teenager, even through my law enforcement career. Drinking was something that I did very often, and my alcoholism progressed, and I found myself being a full blown alcoholic around 26, 29 years old, and when I was stressed out with all the stuff from work and all that kind of stuff, I ended up, we could talk a little bit more about it, but I basically died an alcoholic death. My heart failed from a blood alcohol level of 0.54, and I found myself in the critical care unit in Orange County, California, and I kind of decided at that point in my life that I wanted to turn. I didn't know how to live anymore, but I did not want to die, and I thought to myself, maybe I should take a little break from law enforcement, and I should try to figure out this drinking problem that I have. And I had just left the agency, and I knew that my case was pretty chicken shit. So if I could get myself right, I could probably go back to being a cop for a different agency. And that really was my plan. And I remember, I even, did a background investigation with, different sheriff's agencies, and but my life took a little different turn. I went into business. I got real busy. I just wanted to help people. And that's what I did, and today, 9 years later, I own a very successful drug and alcohol treatment center and transitional living program. And, I'm in the fitness space. I own franchise gyms. I also have a nonprofit organization called the Children of Sheepdogs, where we get to do a lot of cool stuff with the community, in law enforcement. And, so, transition from, being a, knuckle dragon, CO to, learn a little bit in business.
Yeah. A lot to unpack there, but the alcohol thing, it's funny because it's such a prevalent issue. I feel like within any, I guess, shift work or high stress community. I mean, pick your poison for the career field itself, but cop specific, I feel like and first responder overall, there's a lot of issues with alcohol.
For sure. 100%.
And those issues range from, very minor to very serious, but it's that weird question where, we all have those coworkers where you kind of worry, like, is it a problem? Is it a problem? And you'll do the online quizzes, you'll go, see, okay, well, I'm not an alcoholic yet, but, and, I always kind of think of it this way, is that, just because you're not one now doesn't mean it's off the table forever.
Yeah, that's a progressive disease,
For sure.
It can always get worse.
Yeah, and for those of us who do it, in we do it in excess, and it's a great coping mechanism. It works. It's not
Mm-hmm.
healthy, but it'll
Mm-hmm.
work. And
Yeah.
looking at kind of what you've gone through, congrats on your sobriety. That's a very long
Thank
time, and
you.
I know that doesn't really get recognized enough when people. It's a big deal, man. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy, and I have a lot of alcoholics in my family. My brother is a recovering alcoholic now, but going back to you said something that kind of caught my ear, where you basically said I had to decide kind of what I wanted to do. You died essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the driving factor after that, and what did you do? I guess, how did you become successful with drinking?
So when I see the thing is it's a little bit of a longer story. I'll give the short version, but in 2012, I got a DUI while I was still a cop. I wasn't on duty or anything. It was on my day off. And I had a gun on me because I was carrying an off-duty weapon. And but that I didn't like. I wasn't out. I got pulled over, and I blew a .24. So that's pretty high, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember it's funny because several years later, I actually ended up doing a charity event with that same law enforcement office. And but I remember the cop asking me. He said, I said, he knew I was a peace officer. He said, he did the whole field sobriety thing, and he said, I said, look, man, I was like, I was just trying to like speed it up. I was like, if you're gonna book me, like, I need to know so I can call my watch commander. Like I'm supposed to work in the morning.
Yeah.
And and he looks at me and he goes, are you an alcoholic, bro? And I was like, what? It was like the first time anyone asked me if I was an alcoholic that like wasn't like a family member or somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just like a dude standing in uniform at the side of a fucking road asking me, and I was like, no, like, I said no, like but I thought about that, and so I ended up getting the DUI in 2012, right? And so after that happened, there's an internal affairs investigation. The cop was cool. He said, I was very respectful. I wasn't a problem. But I did have a weapon on me, so I obviously got suspended and all that kind of stuff. So that set the ball rolling for the beginning of negative consequences in my life from drinking that were affecting my career and or life, right? Because up until then, I just get shit faced and act a fool amongst my friends or whatever the case may be. But now I'm starting to have negative consequences in my life, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up getting suspended. I got 3 days on the I got 3 days on the beach, um, where you got suspended. And I told myself, I said, I wanted to try to get. I think I have a problem, like I'm clearly having some issues. So I ended up calling my union rep, and told him, I said, I think I have a drinking problem. I need to go get some help. So they end up, giving me, FMLA or whatever, and I go to treatment for, 30 days or whatever. So that was in 2012. Now, as soon as I get back to work from that leave, right, I'm already being dishonest, right? So I take the leave to get sober. I go to treatment for 30 days. I get sober. Then I have an additional like month or 4 weeks, 3 weeks off, right? Before I come back to work, right? But in that time, I'm so dishonest and like inability to be honest with myself about my drinking problem that I end up going to rehab, getting out of rehab, being off of work. Before I come back from work, I'm already drinking again. Does that make sense? So I'm
Yeah.
lying to myself and to everybody else about drinking. Then I come back to work and I get involved in this internal affairs investigation with, the SWAT commander at the time and all this stuff, right? It had nothing to do with drinking, but as the story progresses, you'll understand that I think it was like God's will for me that, I needed an outside intervention of my life I needed to be stripped of everything in my life so that I could understand the seriousness of my problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the reason why I say that is during that time was when in 2012, when I got out of treatment for the first time, I started going to the 12-step program, right? I started going to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous right when I got out of that thing, right? I didn't take it very seriously, but I was going, right? But see, what happens is that you stick around a place like that long enough, you get to meet people, right? And people try to help you, right? And so I started building relationships with people, you know what I mean? And so I was going to this 12-step program for 3 years before I ever actually got sober. So from 2012 was my first the internal affairs investigation for the DUI. Then went back to work. That was cleared. And then I get into this other one, right, with my lieutenant. And and so now I'm building a relationship with people in the 12-step program, right? And I'm going to this program, but I never get honest with myself, and I never get honest. And it's almost like you're doing something, but you're lying about what you're doing. Does that make sense? And
Mm-hmm.
so, because I couldn't get honest with myself, and I I built a relationship with these people. So when I had my heart failure, right, when I drank myself to death 3 years later, whatever you want to call it, and I was in the hospital, no one came to see me except those people. You know what I'm saying? Those people from those rooms, right? I remember just lying in a hospital bed. I was fucking intubated. I had all these fucking IVs in me. They had me strapped to the bed because of, they were like, oh, well, if this guy wakes up and he is going through alcohol withdrawal, So I wake up in this hospital bed, right? And I'm literally, I had all these things hooked up to me, and I'm, and I look up, and it's these people from the rooms of AA, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh man, like, I'm like, shit, how do these people know I'm here, And so they were the people that came and saw me, and I remember I got out of the hospital, and they picked me up. I was there for 4 days, and you know, I I couldn't they couldn't get a normal blood pressure on me. You know what I mean? Because that's why I stayed so long there. And so I remember leaving there, and and I was just like I didn't know what to do. I was kind of like at like a like a low point in my life, And I remember this guy who had been trying to help me for 3 years. He was like what you call like an AA sponsor, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was like an older guy. He was like in his 50s at the time. He had like 30 something years sober. Like he was a Marine. He was successful at life. Found good dude. Good, he's a very good friend of mine today. And he said, I didn't really know. They were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with me. You know what I mean? They wanted to figure out, are we going to take this guy to treatment? Like, what are we going to do? We have to do something. And so, because my family didn't want to have anything to do with me, so I'm like basically kind of like couch surfing in people's like houses at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out where to take me. No treatment center would take me, and I own a treatment center now today, so I know why people didn't want to take me because of the liability. Like I had just had a heart failure. I was an alcoholic, so the detox for that is terrible, and I was just like a liability. You know what I mean? So like no treatment center was like don't care if, and I didn't even have any good insurance at the time because I didn't want to go through work. So I was trying to do it like on a cash base or like have somebody do me a favor, right? And it was just it was just it was a mess, and my you know he took me in, and I stayed at his house for the first night, and then the second night he gave me $20, and he was like, it was Valentine's Day, right? Because I died on like the 10th, the 11th. I was in the hospital 4 days. And then I got out, and he's like, you're gonna go to so and so's house to, stay, and they're gonna watch you. See, people had like babysit me in the beginning because like I couldn't even be by myself because they're like, Dad, it's gonna get drunk again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he gave me $20, and he was like, look, you're probably gonna need some Del Taco. I smoked Newport cigarettes at the time, and he's like, buy yourself some cigarettes or whatever, and we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with you. So I was like, okay. So he took me to this other guy's house, and that guy like fell asleep, bro. And I had $20 on me. So as soon as that guy fell asleep, I fucking walked out the door, and I walked like a mile to a liquor store, bro. And I bought a shitty bottle of pint of vodka. And I remember I'm walking back, bro, and I'm drinking this. And I'm standing on this. I finally get back to this guy's house, and I'm standing like on this wall, like this retaining wall, and like it's this grass, and then there's the sidewalk, and so I can kind of see the street. and I look at it and I remember like this was my thing. I would take a bottle of Gatorade. I'd drink like a quarter of it or a half of it, and then I'd pour the half pint of vodka in it, right? And I remember looking, and I remember like I was feeling a little bit better, right? Because I needed booze. I was so physically dependent on alcohol at this time. So here I am, got out of the hospital 4 days ago for drinking myself to death, and I find myself drinking again with the $20 that a guy gave me for fucking food. You know what I mean? And I'm just desperate. And I remember my phone, it was like gonna get cut off because I hadn't paid the bill. And I remember calling that same guy again, that guy that gave me the money. And I was like, and it's like, if you're an alcoholic or you're sober, you can tell when people are drinking over the phone. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I called him, and I think he already knew I was drinking again. And you could just tell, like, even a guy that had 30 years sober and in the program from AA and probably helped hundreds or thousands of people in his life, sobriety, was kind of like, I don't know about this guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's going to take for this guy. Like, I felt like that feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know what it's going to take for you, Jamil. He said, but what I do know is that what we're doing is not working. I've been trying to help you get sober for 3.5 years. You just drank yourself to death, ended up in a fucking hospital bed. And you're going to die an alcoholic death, bro. Like, and I don't know what it's going to take for you. I think a person like you needs to be taken out of their environment and just put into a place, and needs to be put into a place where you can dry out long enough, where you can just get physically sober, And I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, but you know what? Like, I don't want to be the guy that talks to your family, like at your funeral saying, I'm sorry I couldn't help that guy. You know what I mean? And he was like, but there's a guy I think you should call. His name is Matt. And I knew Matt. Matt was like an alcoholic. I mean, Matt was like the alcoholic, the guy that helps the alcoholics, the worst kind of alcoholics, So basically, if there's no hope for you, for some reason, you end up like with Matt, right? And so I hated this guy because he was kind of like an arrogant prick. He'd been sober a long time, but he told the truth, bro, and he didn't give a fuck about how you felt, like he has a way. He has a way with low bottom alcoholics. I don't know. It's just maybe a gift he's got. And I knew who he was, and I didn't really like him. I actually almost got into. See, I was so angry when I was new. I used to fist fight with people in Alcoholics Anonymous. You're not supposed to do that. And I used to like threaten people. And I came out of the jail, bro. Like if I don't like what you said or you didn't do what I wanted you to do, like that's just how we do things, And so he's like, I think you should call this guy Matt, and I think that he can help you. And but you and we need to get off of this hamster wheel, And so he basically fired me, like he fired me from being, his mentee.
Yeah.
And responsee. And so I called this guy, and I remember I told him, I said, and this is where I'm going to get to, why it changed, And I called him and I said, hey, bro. And he was like, hey, and we knew who it was. I knew, and he was like, and I said, do you think you can help me not drink vodka at 5:00 in the morning anymore? And he was like, well, he's like, do you think you're willing to go to any lengths to stay sober? And I was like, you hear that so many times in like the 12-step program. You hear that so many times, like from people. But for some reason, when he said it, it was like, damn, like, fuck, like, I really, really want to get sober this time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like as desperate as the dying, you know what I mean? Like I was desperate, and, I was just so desperate, and I just said, bro, like, I don't care. Like, I just don't want to drink in the morning anymore. Like I'm tired. I'm fairly dependent on booze. Like my life is just unmanageable, bro. Like, and he was like, okay, I think you should go to treatment. I think you need to go to detox or you need to go to rehab or something. I think everyone's trying to figure out a place for you to go. And I think when you get there, you should call me and you should stay there for a while. And, so I said, okay. So I hung up the phone and I called my mom and, my big badass, fucking level 4 prison yard guard, fucking, motherfucker calling his mom for help, right? That's just, it's kind of like when a person gets, like a gangster thinks he's so badass, but he goes to jail. Who does he call Bill? Now his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom owned and operated treatment centers at that time, and it helped thousands of people all over Orange County. So she had a lot of resources, and
Yeah.
she knew her son was a raging alcoholic, but he was a fucking egomaniac, narcissistic cop, and no one could tell him what to do, right?
Sure.
And so I asked her, and she answered the phone, and I was surprised she answered, because when they called her from the hospital, my family didn't come, and you know, I I just I called her and I said, do you think you could help me one last time? And she was like, well, let me see what I can do, So she ended up finding a place for me to go to in Newport Beach, California, or Costa Mesa. She called a favor into a guy that owned the treatment center, and he did it for her. He didn't do it for me. He did it for her. And they took me on what you call a scholarship, which means that it's like a juice card, bro. It's like you calling somebody and saying, hey, can you help my friend because of the relationship we have? And by the way, it's like a $30,000 gift. You get what I'm saying? Because it costs at least $1,000 a day,
Yeah.
like to fucking help somebody in a medical facility like that. So he did, and that's when I got there, and that was the moment. It was the desperation, bro. I was a slave to alcohol, bro, and I couldn't get out of the physical dependence, and I didn't have any tools, you know, um, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to to do it on my own, and I went to treatment, bro, and I was there for I went for 30 days, but I stayed for 90, and I just realized I just really I wanted something different out of life, I didn't. Um, I didn't want to become a millionaire or fucking try to open a treatment center and all that kind of shit. I just wanted to fucking not drink in the morning anymore. And but there's like a recipe, you know what I mean? And the recipe was what people had been telling me for years, which was, you need to get honest with yourself. You need to get honest with another human being. You need to do a 12-step program, and you need to do it thoroughly, and you need to be honest about it, and you need to be willing to, look at your past and your admit your faults, and make restitution, and apologize to people, and have a relationship with God or a higher power or whatever you choose, and then you need to go out and help other people, and that's really what I learned in the first couple of years of my sobriety. But the first year, I didn't have. See, after I left the agency, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I had just gotten sober, and so I thought I wanted to be a nurse. I had no bedside manner from coming from working a prison yard, but I did get a job in a hospital, so I was working, you know um, as an entry level job, and in the hospital, and I just I scraped some money together, and I leveraged some credit cards, and I got into that gym thing, and I opened up a franchise gym, and just by leveraging credit, debt, and a couple bucks, and also right before that happened, I decided that I wanted to help people. All the stuff that I learned in this program, I wanted to try to do. And there was my family had a real piece of real estate where squatters kept living in it, and so that people would come in, they pay the first and last, and they'd never pay again. Then we go through this eviction process. So finally, I had this idea when I was in treatment with my best friend, who was newly sober at the time, who was also now my business partner. And I was like, hey, bro, what if we open a sober living home? And he was like, the fuck? We can't even stay sober, bro. We've been trying to stay sober for fucking years. And I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be great. We're going to help people, and it's going to work. And, so I ended up convincing my family to rent this house to us on a 30-day net. And that was in end of 2015. And, I ended up, that's when we started our first sober living home. And we just wanted to help drunks, wanted to help people newly sober and give them a clean, safe environment and structure. And that's what we did, and that has, 9 years later, moved into, 13 locations, almost 75 beds. We have government contracts with, reentry. We're a reentry provider. And we also, our drug and alcohol treatment center. And, it's just been a lot of different things. But, the desperation is really where it came from. I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew that I didn't want what I had.
Wow. That's it's one of those things where I don't think people really, until you experience it or you have family who's been through it,
Hmm.
you won't understand the totality
Hmm.
that comes with, especially with alcohol, with
Yeah.
addiction. And my brother brought up a really good point. This was years ago, where he was like, if I was dependent on heroin, it would be hard for me to get it, but it wouldn't be that hard. But I can
Hmm.
go to the gas station right now and buy a little bottle of tacos and be fine. And that was the difference where,
Hmm.
like, no one smokes meth at Thanksgiving. If they do,
Hmm.
that's probably very rare, but everyone drinks
Yeah.
alcohol. Everyone drinks alcohol on Christmas, on New Year's.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it was really different. And then watching him go through everything you just told me, it's borderline, like, I don't want to say
Yeah.
comical, but it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Everyone goes through the same thing,
For
just
sure.
different variations of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
100%.
it was interesting though. You brought up family, and out of curiosity, my dad was an alcoholic for a short period of time. It didn't last very long, and we didn't actually know that until after he died.
Yeah.
But in your family, did you guys have any issues with
Yeah, so
alcohol?
my dad was also an alcoholic, and my dad ended up dying when I was 16 years old from cancer. But
Oh,
my dad was also an alcoholic, and he actually also got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, he died with 3 years sober. So I had a bad example of what to do, but I also had the example of the solution. But I always told myself I wasn't going to be like that. I wasn't
yeah,
going to be like my dad. And I was way worse. I think my dad was a pretty bad alcoholic, but I was just as bad. So um, I needed to, I had to get honest.
sure. What kind of cancer did he have?
He had brain cancer. Yeah,
Hmm.
he had brain cancer. So
Sorry
he
to hear
ended
that.
up.
My dad died of cancer too when I was
Oh, I'm
21.
sorry to
So
hear that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's a tough fucking thing, man.
So how? I mean, and kind of changing gears a little bit. I mean, dealing with death at that age has to be probably one of the harder things you've had to deal with as a kid and as an adult too.
Yeah,
Did that
yeah.
play into the alcoholism as an adult, possibly?
Mm, no, my dad, he was I think he started drinking much later in his life.
Okay.
Um, I I was drinking from, a very, very young age, 16 years old. I mean, I had my first drunk when I was 12. Like because I stole a bottle of vodka. My friend stole a bottle of no, Irish Mist from some his dad or something. But I had my first drunk like 12, 13 years old, and I didn't. I watched my dad drink, and he was like a terrible drunk. Like he was like very like angry and like mentally and emotionally
Yeah.
abusive, and he was but he was like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like just
Oh,
just a completely different. Like drunk, he was one way. Sober, he was a fucking great dude, and it was just like as soon as the booze. I don't know if I was that. I wasn't like that. But it just depends on how much you drink, right? But he was a very, very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde drinker,
almost like come the evening hours, dad
Hmm.
would
Hmm.
change. He'd be
Yeah, for
different.
sure. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Wild. So your mom, and kind of the whole family dynamic thing, it's interesting because she obviously knows a lot about all of this given what she does
Hmm.
for a living. Did did you feel like, you mentioned family not being at the hospital, and this is just coming from my own experiences. Did you already feel like at that point that your family was like, nope, fuck it, you can figure it out on your own, and
Did I
we're not going
think
to help you?
that? No, I
Yeah,
didn't. I didn't anticipate that. I was actually pretty surprised about that. Like, I really thought that they would like come, or at least like
yeah,
wonder, but they didn't. But I realized that I gave that right up, bro. Like I didn't. I gave the right up to have the relationship with the family based on what I was doing because this wasn't the first time I got drunk. It wasn't the first time
sure.
I had tried to get sober. I was just like a fucking train wreck. Like it was like, oh, what's Jamil doing this time? Oh, what did
Yeah,
how did he fuck up again? And I think they were just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of thing all the time. You
yeah.
know,
Kind of waiting for that phone call
yeah,
one day when
yeah,
if you die or whatever it is that yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And the treatment stuff is interesting because I really like the fact that you can sort of walk the walk, talk the talk. When I was part of our homeless outreach team for a few
Hmm.
years, alcohol was number one without question. It was either opioids or alcohol. But
Yeah.
almost everybody, I would say 99% of the homeless population deals with an abuse issue. Almost
Hmm.
exclusively alcohol is going to be part of it no matter what.
Yeah.
The competition for housing in California is so hard and so difficult, and it's one of the weirdest things because, like I talked about earlier, alcohol is so readily available. A lot of these guys and gals will just sort of hit this, sort of repeat cycle over and over
Hmm.
again, and you might have that one day where, and not under like the stress of getting arrested or even anything. Just they just say, "Fuck it, I'm ready right now. I'm
Hmm.
ready right now, right fucking now." And you go, "Okay, cool." And you could call in all the favors you want, but you're still looking at a few days before
Hmm.
it happens, and then the next thing you know, they're not interested anymore. And yeah,
Exactly. That's what happens. Yeah, yeah. It's what you got to get them at that moment, and I don't know what that moment, that for me it was, it was long overdrawn, long overdue,
yeah,
and I wish that it happened earlier, but it didn't, and it takes what it takes, but my life wouldn't be what it is today if that hadn't happened, I mean, I was, I put myself in a box, working, in that line of work, and I'm really grateful. I love the job, bro. Like, I mean, it was great. I didn't really get to enjoy financially anything because I was always spending every fucking dollar I had all the time, on partying and drinking and all that kind of shit and mismanaging. But you know, um, today I think to myself, I would be, I was, and the thing is like, I remember my coworkers used to be like, yeah, you're solid, bro. Like, you're a good cop, like, um, I always had their back, it was always like, when I was at work, I was a good employee. Um, but it was like, the days off before and after the Fridays and the Mondays, it was always hard to get to work,
yeah,
Um, but I don't. I miss the camaraderie and I miss the people. But yeah, man, that was some violent shit, bro.
yeah. Do you think that, and this is kind of an obvious answer, I think, but the stress that you got from work, and I'll kind of maybe this will be like a two-part question, but the stress obviously contributed to the drinking a little bit, but
Hmm.
then did you feel like there was a complete lack of support or even a fear of letting people know at work that, hey, I have a
No, no.
problem?
I think at work, I think alcohol and drinking and everything is very accepted. I
Yeah,
think that
for sure.
if you think people could be. There's an old saying in AA where it's the alcoholic in the gutter looking down on people, right? Like, how can you be in the gutter looking down on people, right?
Hmm.
But in a sense, after I left law enforcement, and that really resonated with me with cops that have drinking problems because there's cops out there that we're egomaniacs, bro. You know what I mean? And that really have a drinking problem, no better than somebody off the street, but they think they're better than people because they do what they do. But you're a fucking alcoholic yourself, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And socially it's accepted, but I think it's hard. It's what keeps people. drinking and in their problem and the way that their life is lack of personal development and the mindset and the ego and the pride. Like you have to be able to remove emotion from your reality of what your life is like to change or to be better. Um, it's taken me a lot of years, a lot of personal development, a lot of time to figure that out. But in the beginning, you know, I had an identity problem, bro. I literally thought that what I did for a living defined who I was as a person. And a lot of cops struggle with that, you
Yeah.
know. And I realized that I'm I'm a low bottom alcoholic, bro. Like I have a drinking problem, and I needed people to tell me the truth in the beginning. That's what the men in the 12-step program that I went to did. They told me the truth in spite of if it hurt my feelings. They like helped me until I could help myself. And but they didn't sugarcoat it. But that's what I needed. And I really do believe that cops need to be told the truth if they want to change. You know, drinking is accepted. The alcoholism rate in law enforcement is over 70%.
Yeah.
And I think that people have not been removed from it for any period of time to see any real change. They think their life is good because their life is average and mediocre. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you remove the vices, you're operating at your true potential. And I think that a lot of people, in general, but cops also don't understand that concept. But if they do, their life could be extraordinarily better. You know what I mean? Like cops have an unfair advantage on most people when it comes to acquiring real estate in that space, right? Because banks want to lend to that line of work, right? Because you have a secure job. Like if I could do it all over again, I would build my real estate portfolio while being a cop. And when I retired, I would have like an 8-figure real estate portfolio. And then you can parlay and leverage that to the next 20, 30 years and, become a multimillionaire. You know what I'm saying? But you don't even think about those kind of things because, you're partying or whatever,
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective because I mean, an alcoholic can be anyone, anywhere, anything. It's not specific to the homeless guy sitting in the
Yeah.
parking lot of Walmart. It could be anybody. Um, I did want to go back to Matt. I guess that was kind of an interesting because he kind of sounds like he's the last. He's the I don't know what the comparison is. He's the Yoda. He's the whoever that's going to help you out. What did Matt do that was different than
Well,
everybody else?
so I think what it was, he didn't, well, first of all, Matt's 31 years sober now. So at the
Wow.
time he was like minus 9 years, right? So, and he got sober young. So, he got sober at 16 years old. So, I think he's like almost 50 now. But, he could relate to people being young and getting sober. I was 29 at the time. I wasn't that young but I was pretty young. And, I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't that, there's people that get sober younger. There's people that come in their 50s and 60s. But, he just had a way with alcoholics, and I think that was he has the ability, well, no one can help an alcoholic like an alcoholic, right? Same thing for drug addict, right? You're
Yeah.
uniquely qualified to help another person if you are an alcoholic or drug addict that isn't the same, has a drinking or a drug problem. But I don't know if it was a combination of desperation with when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
But he told me the truth, bro. He told me things like, like I don't care, how you feel, bro. I don't really care how you feel. Like I care if you live or if you die. And based on your past, you drink vodka and end up in critical care units and fucking die. So like, what do you know about running your own life? Um, those were like hard things to hear, because I was
For
like
sure.
from where I come from, and he used to tell me shit like, you know what, bro, like that's nice. If I want to know how to fuck my life up, I'll ask you. And I you know, those are like, I just wanted to fight him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, uh, and he was just like, look, bro, like, I'm not here to fuck around with you. Like, I'm here to help you. Like, you can do this. You can do what
Yeah.
I'm telling you to do. And you can go to these meetings and you can fucking do these steps and you can fucking help people and you can, come around and just, or you can not and you can just fuck off and go die again, bro. Like, it don't matter to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I was like, damn, like, he does have a point. And, I was just really, I was just ready, bro. I was ready, and I listened to him, and I did a bunch of shit when I was new, and I still do a lot of those things, but and then we ended up working together in business a little bit, and when that happens, it kind of like boundaries get crossed a little bit, where
Sure.
he can't really help me in the sobriety stuff personally anymore because now we're kind of working in business together, and there's money involved, and there's just an old tradition like in the program where you don't want to do business with the person that's helping you stay sober.
Yeah.
So, so we're still very, I mean, I saw him last night, but, he's not my sponsor anymore. You know what I mean? There's another guy that helps me that's, an older cat that has, 40 years sober. And, I work with him now, but Matt and I are still very, very good friends, and I'll never forget what he's done for me.
Yeah.
But, it was just one of those things where, he's just, he played a very, very big role in my sobriety amongst many other guys. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like there's a handful of dudes that helped me in my sobriety, and all my homes, all my sober living homes, every location is named, has a nickname, and it has like a graffiti hand artist mural on it, and with the location name. And so a couple of my sober living homes are named after people that helped me. Like my detox location is called Mississippi Mike's, and that's the guy that was helping me before I met this guy, Matt. Remember
Nice.
I told you about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I have a franchise. I franchised my sober living model called the Yunker Bunker. Matt's last name is Yunker.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
and, I got like another location called Peanuts, who's a guy named Paul, iron worker. He's actually the president of the Iron Workers Union now.
Wow.
But, at the time, he was just a fucking, a connector. He was fucking walking on the iron, and he helped me. And, you know, um, so I got a group of people that, have helped me along the way, and,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. But, Matt was just, one of those guys that, he's probably helped lots of people just like me. He has, not a lot of them have stayed sober, but a handful of them have, because most of the time alcoholics don't stay sober, bro. Like
No. Yeah.
it's usually like, it's a surprise when they do, you know?
Yeah. For sure. I remember my brother. He's had quite a few relapses, but
Hmm.
the more consistent that he stayed with sobriety in the longer terms, the relapses were just quick. And he would
Hmm.
call me and just say, "Hey, man, just want to let you know I relapsed. I'm good, but I'm starting over." Okay. And
Hmm.
there were a few times where that happened. There's some were worse than others.
Hmm.
Some of the more recent ones, but I just if more people understood that it's not going to be, as I hate hearing, and I have family who said this before. Well, just stop drinking. It's like, well, that's not
Hmm.
how that works. If they would, they could, and they can't. And it's not a matter of just stop drinking. It's a complete overhaul on the brain and the body and
Hmm.
everything else. But um, I do think that there's going to be a kind of a different understanding and almost a different level of respect that you'll probably get from some of these guys and gals who come into the
Yeah.
program, and you can talk about your experiences, which if you go back to like cop world, if you
Hmm.
go to like a training or something and the instructor stands up there and he kind of rattles off his accolades, if they're not
Hmm.
impressive, you're not going to engage the audience. It's the same
Yeah,
thing with,
for sure. For
you
sure.
can say, I've been there, I've done that. And because they're going to tell you, well, what do you know about this? And if you can go,
Hmm.
oh, well, we'll get a load of this shit. This is what I've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to probably be more receptive to, your services and the
Hmm.
facilities themselves. It kind of sounds like they have a neat little kind of like, I don't know, a little flair to each location, which is great because
Yeah,
it,
yeah. Yeah, they all look the same, so that's why I
yeah,
got the franchise model from. But they all look the same. They're all the same color scheme. They're all everything looks the same. I mean, it's like a
yeah,
McDonald's. Like you
that's
can
cool.
tell that's pretty, But yeah, it is unique, and I have I we help all kinds of people. We did cash pay, for a long time. Then we did, now we're doing insurance and government,
Awesome.
and the government is really what, we focus on because, it's, with my experience working in the prison system and, just the demographic, it's, we know how we found our niche, and that's what it is. And so now I just want to focus on just reentry programs, and I want to scale that in my county, which I've done my county as much as I can. Now I want to go into outside counties in the
Yeah.
state, and then I want to go statewide because you and I both know that every Department of Corrections, every state in the United States has some type of reentry program, whether
Yeah,
it's a
for sure.
federal prison or a state prison. And so, my experience, I'm uniquely qualified. I'm uniquely qualified in two ways. I'm uniquely qualified to help an alcoholic or a drug addict because of my experience, right? Because of my experience of being sober and being an alcoholic, right? And I'm also, the second way I'm qualified for that avatar is because I have experience working in the prison system.
Hmm.
I've been working with inmates since I was 21 years old. I'm 39 now. There was a couple years in there, obviously, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but I pretty much have always worked with the incarcerated prison population, inmates, right?
Yeah.
Parolees. So I'm not saying that I was a parolee or like I don't have a criminal background, right? But I understand how to work with them, right?
Yep.
And so for me, it's like, I'm not, don't get me wrong, like, when you're in law enforcement or maybe even when you work for that department, it's the cops and then it's the inmates, right? That's how it is. Um, I'm not here to say that, um, one is better than the other, right? But what I'm saying is that you're a detective, you work on the street, right? So that if a criminal or a person that has a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue that problem can be solved, right? They can no longer commit crimes and they can become productive members of society, pay taxes, be good people, right? And be, quote unquote, be rehabilitated, right?
Sure.
That's the solution, right?
Yeah.
You're out there dealing with the problem every day, right? But if we could figure out a way of a solution, that's how you change the world, right? That's how you change people, right? And so for me, I learned very on, and this fucking thing has stuck with me since the day um, I got into prison and I left. There was this old time fucking CO, bro. His name was John Easler, bro. He had like fucking 20 something years, old white dude, bro. And just, veteran cop, bro, just like seen it all. And he said, you know why people you know why us cops get to go home at the end of the day? And I was like, why? And he said, you're stupid if you don't think this is true. And I said, what's that? And he said, because the inmates let us. He said, we're outnumbered out here. Sure, we got guns, but that's why. He goes, there's 700 cops across three shifts, bro. There's fucking 3,000 inmates here. He's like, and he goes, an inmate's punishment is their sentence. Um, who the fuck are we to fucking make that worse for them? You get what I'm saying? He's like, we deal with inmates how they act, right? We respond if there's chaos, there's riot, we call the incident. Our job here is not to be a piece of shit person and make their stay here worse, right? And he goes in, and if they, don't get me wrong, you're always gonna have your problems. You're always gonna have your problematic guys, and you got to deal with them. But he's like, somebody comes in here and goes and learns their lesson and wants to fucking go out there and be a better person and never come back. Who the fuck are you or am I to say that they can't do that? You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And he was like, and I don't know, it just really resonated. I was like 22 years old when he told me that, bro. And I, fucking went right over my head.
Sure.
But I think about it a lot now and it's like, um, as society, we always want to complain about the problem, right? We want to complain about, these guys are getting let out of jail, which is, they shouldn't be letting out that many people. But they're committing crimes, they're doing this, they're doing that, right? That's the problem. We constantly hear about the problem, but no one is talking about what we can do to help them, right? Not because we're like advocates or because we think, they're better than anybody. It's because that's the solution.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? The solution is to try to fucking help people. Just like if you're a cop and you got a drinking problem, right? They're not just going to fire you. They're going to try to get you some help, right? And then it's up to you if you take it or you don't, right?
Yeah.
So all we are is we're just trying to provide a solution, bro. We're trying to provide a solution for people to have a better way of life, and for lives to change, and for us to save people's lives, and also to help the community, bro. You know what I mean? And if
Absolutely.
I can, if my program can help people, you know, stop spending tax dollars by going to prison for stupid shit, like getting high and committing a fucking crime, because we stopped the problem of them getting high. We helped them solve the problem of them getting high and drinking. Then, bro, then we're in the solution. You know what I mean? And that's
Absolutely.
what I thought. Like when I was like doing this, and I was like, wait, like my my training and everything in my being has been like, oh, it's them against us. You know what I mean? But it's like this is how we're going to try to change society in this area, is by trying to help the problem. That's the problem, bro. That's the real problem. You want to talk about crime? You want to talk? I mean, don't get me wrong, bro. There's sickos. There's fucking murderers. You and I both know there's people that have 290 fences that
Yeah.
maybe they can never get help, right? Or
Such a small group though. It's a
but
small
yeah, but
group
what I'm
compared
saying
to
is,
everything else.
but there's a lot of people, bro, that are just low bottom dope fiends and
Oh, for
alcoholics,
sure.
bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The
And
majority
some of
of
them want to
property.
change. Some of them want
Oh
to
yeah.
change. Not all of them. And the ones that don't want to change, okay, great, don't change. Then you're gonna
Oh
keep
yeah.
fucking up and you're gonna keep going to prison. But for those of you that do want to change, and have a better life and live, then maybe we can help those people. And that's what I decided when we got this program, and now I want to scale it. We want to grow it because, we want to provide a solution to the problem. Everyone's
For
talking
sure.
about the problem, like I said, and you know, um, this is how we're going to try to change things in that
Yeah.
area. You
Yeah.
know.
The going back to what you said, I separate bad guys in two different categories. You have, your evil, which is your
Hmm.
your child molesters, your rapists, your murderers, right? The people who do things that don't get anything
Hmm.
in return for their crimes, and then the majority of everyone else is essentially a victim to addiction of some
Hmm.
kind, and as a result,
Hmm.
they commit crimes. And out of all the dudes that I've interviewed for property crimes, especially if we do the interview when they're not
Hmm.
high, 99%
Yeah.
of them, if not, go, oh man, I feel so bad. I should. And they actually have remorse because
Yeah.
they were just trying to score. They were trying to get high again. So they took advantage of a situation, stole something,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And it doesn't negate the crime, but it does give some human element to it.
Yeah.
And,
All those people have to go somewhere, bro.
yeah, for
You know what
sure.
I'm saying? They all have to go
I
somewhere.
also, I also saw a really interesting trend with when I was on the homeless outreach team, that a lot of these guys and gals, majority of them men, had two things in common. One, a lot of them were adopted, and two,
Yeah.
the majority of them, if not all of them, had no father. So there was an
Yeah.
absentee, father issue in the house and stuff like that. But yeah, man, that's crazy. And I do like the kind of outlook you're giving, where a lot of people will complain and they will talk
Yep.
about how, oh, this is messed up, but when it comes to the hard work, and it is a lot of work and money, that they just sort of lose interest. And that's where you will, well, the solution, if you don't like the homeless problem, if you don't like homeless people in your town, well, there's an addiction issue that's
Yeah.
going to make that problem better or worse. So you can't complain about the housing or the tea houses or the clinics that we're going to build after they're built, because you just bitched about the homeless crisis. Well, this is the
Yep. Yep.
solution. That's how
Yep.
we'll solve
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
So
And homeless too. There's a there's there's another program that is coming out that we're kind of implementing right now, and we're working on that. The problem with that is that the funding is so low. Like it's
yeah.
not long enough, and
Hmm.
so they're trying to work on extensions. Yeah.
And a lot of those guys, they do get some type of income, whether it's SSI or something. They'll have something. A lot of the areas where I'm at, we usually have to outsource to other areas because it's just so competitive. But if they make any type of income, they can contribute that to their rent or whatever
Yep.
it is. It's not hard, but again, going back to the buy-in and kind of the perspective of, well, I I know how you feel because of XYZ. I think that's a huge bonus. There's a lot of people that run these places that have never had to face any type of demons, and to
Oh,
include,
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and we're not one of those places.
yeah, and
You
that
know,
that
we
makes it just more valid, which is awesome.
yeah. Hmm.
Cool, man. Well,
Yeah, we love, yeah, we just want to help people, bro. We help people in many different areas. We help people, it's insurance, private pay, normal, regular people, and we
sure.
also help people, that are, coming from contracted law enforcement agencies.
Awesome, man. Well, I think this is a good place to leave it, but I did want to, can you just talk about some of your, if there's listeners out there who are curious or interested or who want to help, can you just sort of go over some of your either social media contacts or programs if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want, if I can help you in any way, whether you're struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction, or if I can help you in any way in business, I just launched a mentorship coaching program for first responders and people to kind of show them and help them how to do what I've done. I went from being essentially a law enforcement, in law enforcement to losing everything, and to building a multi-million-dollar business. You can contact me at Cop Turns Entrepreneur on Instagram. You can also go to my website, which is jamilsyedcoaching.com. And, if you're interested in, helping people also, I franchise my sober living model, which allows people to be property owners. They own a business. They own a business that pays for their real estate. They're helping the community and they're helping people, most importantly, and that's called the Yunker Bunker franchise. And, you can contact me and I can, help you do that as well. But, we just want to try to make our mark here. We want to try to help people. And, if you're, like I said before, if you're struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction, especially if you're a first responder, please reach out to me. I'll try to help you as best as I can.
Awesome, man. Well, Jamil, thank you for being here. Your story was awesome. And again, thank you for sharing, man. That was really powerful.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Stay tuned for another episode. Lots of fun stuff coming down the pipe. Again, Jamil, thank you. And good luck, man. And congratulations on sobriety. It's a big deal.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. That wraps up episode 8, season 2. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the feedback and some of the messages that I'm getting. It's awesome. Looking to move things forward again and to create a larger platform. A lot of fun stuff planned for the next few months. And I will actually be a guest on a podcast called the Tone Alert Podcast. Really cool group of guys. Check them out for sure. Lots of good content, good episodes, good conversation. I will more than likely just put that in as an episode available on my end so you guys can listen to it. But yeah, that'll be going down, probably dropping next week. So again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here. Have a great week and have a happy Easter and be safe. See you next time.